for week 1 last Friday, and one of the assignment was to make a book snap. And so let's see, is the slideshow over? Yeah. We were just showing people slides. Maybe Sarah, can you play it again while I'm just chatting?
She might be on the phone, but oh, there it comes. Okay.
So one of the strategies listed for with it, as a classroom teacher, might be to help kids create book snaps and what they liked about books, and then let them see that that you know, when kids read the same book, they get something, everyone gets a little something different on it, from it. And so these were some of the book snaps created by participants last week. And it just shows the variety of and creativity that comes out when each one's able to talk about what they liked from their reading experience. So we are going to continue this, and it just kind of keeps us all working towards a collective experience, as well as increasing our technology skills.
You save it each week and send it out as a PDF. So everybody, if someone's not connected to the slide deck and you didn't get to look through them, we'll save as a PDF and send it out as a follow-up.
And then I don't know if they made it but couldn't get it on there. Can they send them to Sarah? And then maybe Sarah, you can work around trying to. So maybe you just send a quick, maybe throw your email in the chat. Like if you made one but you want that it wasn't displayed, go ahead and email it to Sarah, and she will throw it on the one we have started, so that it gets included in the PDF version. Okay, that was a lot to say. I don't know why that was hard. Okay. All right, so it is Friday. That's why that was hard. Yep, it's Friday. And so that's all it needs to be. It's Friday, and oh yes, there's coronavirus, so then everything is just hard. Okay, so we are ready to launch into chapter 3, which is our week 2 of the virus. Okay, this is going to be that kind of day. Week 2 of the study, and chapter 3 of the book. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We are going to give it a try to run it in PowerPoint so that we can run it with closed captionings for those of you who may need that support. Okay, and then I have to go into it. Looks like I'm ready. Hopefully this works. Okay, so here we are with comprehensive literacy for all, and this week was on alphabetic knowledge and phonological awareness, which is often right up your SLP's alley, except for when you start thinking about, yeah, but how am I looking at that knowledge for nonverbal kids, and how am I looking at that knowledge, that understanding when they're unable to sound out sounds, when they don't have the articulation skills for that. So it gets tricky when we start talking about kids that are not functionally verbal. So let's first just point out that they define these two different things. Alphabetic knowledge is fundamental to literacy learning and includes the ability to distinguish letter shapes, name them, write them, and identify the sounds they represent. Phonological awareness refers to the individual's knowledge and ability to manipulate a sound, structure of oral language, instruction, support letter sound knowledge, first letter identification, and word reading, etc. So it sounds like that some of us may have thought this was all the same thing, and so it's important to know that there is a difference between these two things, and that instruction needs to happen in both areas. But like they talked about last week, you know, that it's not sequential. It's not that they're going to master alphabetic knowledge and phonemic awareness, phonological awareness before we do shared reading or any of that. It's just that it's understanding that there's a time, being able to identify the letters and write the letters is one thing. Understanding the sounds they make and the impact they make on literacy is another skill. I do want to just point this out that under downloadable resources through books publishing, you can click. So if you own the book, you can go into Brooks Publishing and there's a thing called the Download Hub. And there are handouts and there are additional PDFs and in particular explicit instructional routines that I found helpful. Has anyone taken a look at the downloadable resources?
We also put the instructions in the notes from last time if you were on our first webinar, in case you need to find them.
Anyone take a look at that? So it sounds like a few of you have, and maybe a few of you haven't. It was just a little confusing, so it wasn't as obvious as I wanted it to be on how to get there. So I just wanted to give you that little clue that you have to hit Download Hub. Okay. So what I found, what was sticking out to our team as we briefed for this book study was, if the student does not. I think that the authors did an excellent job talking about yeah, buts, right? And I think we all end up falling into that, right? It's like, well, we know about alphabetic awareness, or we know about phonological awareness, but what if the kid can't? So let's, right off the bat, there were some quotes in the book that said, if the student does not use speech to communicate, then say, practice naming this letter. You say it to yourself and I'm going to say it out loud. You say it in your head and I'm going to say it out loud. And I think that it was really nice to just get that verbiage right off the bat about what does this look like when we have these kids that don't do voice output. If the student does not use speech to communicate, then say, let's practice saying this letter. The letter A represents the sound A. You say the sound to yourself while I say it out loud. And we aren't testing. We are just teaching them how to create that inner voice. If the student does not have the physical abilities to point to letters in print, then use partner-assisted scanning or other ways to vary the presentation so that the student is not restricted to identifying the letter from an array of individual letters. And I think they get into it later about why we want to be careful about how we participate in these activities and that they are teaching and not testing. Did this stand out to anyone in the book, reading in the book study, that anybody reading that just that how helpful it was to get exact verbiage on how to guide these kids?
I like the way they gave those examples. I thought, I know that when I have seen this kind of instruction going on in a classroom, those nonverbal students are kind of left out of that portion where they're instructed to say it in their heads. And so I think that's important to point that out, that we need to give them that opportunity to practice it in their own way.
I liked it too, and I think I thought about that for inclusion. Like, if you're in a classroom, why wouldn't you have everyone say the sound in their head, right? Why wouldn't, none of us are oral sound outers later in life, right? So it's like everyone should be challenged to do that sound out piece in their head. And I wondered okay, those of you who can say it out loud, say it out loud. Now, none of you say anything and say it in your head. Was your voice loud? Was it quiet? Did it sound like a girl? Did it sound like a boy? Like, you know, you can talk about inside voices, and I think that could be something that could be actually very inclusive. Looks like a lot of people in the chat are talking about just kind of presuming that confidence. Like, if I'm telling you to make that sound in your head, I'm assuming you're doing that. there's no other way to test this, and we're going to assume that you're following along, that you're motivated, and that you're doing this in your head. There's no evidence to prove otherwise. So why not presume the competency?
I do think it also offers that variable repetition.
Right. Exactly. I like that.
Wendy in the chat also mentioned about using partner-assisted scanning with the concept of implementing literacy for everyone. And Wendy, if you want, I invite you to share a little bit more about that. It's a great comment.
Yeah, I'm happy to. My team actually talked about that this morning. And in fact, Alma's in our group here learning today too. As far as access, like we have some students that have more limited access means, and that would using things like switches and some ways where you're taking their behavior as intentional is a great way to start building that student's ability to control their environment and to have some learned responses that intentional behavior gets things going in their environment.
Exactly. And that means, you know, establishing a way where they can say that's the one, right? Where they can say yes. And that transfers to every other area of their whole life. So we should be doing that prior to literacy instruction, within literacy instruction, beyond literacy instruction. I agree.
Right. That idea of saturating their environment with opportunities rather than just giving closed set responses or minimal opportunities.
Right, or 8 out of 10s or whatever the IEP says, which is kind of like fatal. I loved this quote: mnemonics are more effective when they are personally relevant. This means that mnemonics will be the most effective if teachers consider the interests and experiences of their own students when pairing letters with pictures, words, actions, sounds, or foods that are meaningful to their students. And I think sometimes we can get caught up, and part of it's by product. Like, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to do this. And, oh, they say A is for alligator, but you have an Adam in your classroom and your kids are never going to see an alligator, but they see Adam every day, right? And thinking about, you know, I know that this creates a little bit more work because it would even change from year to year. It's not even like you would make something that would always transfer, but making sure that the way that we play around with what does that sound with and what does that sound like and how many syllables are in that. We have a great teacher here who on their devices, the kid's name says the name. So it says Adam, and then it would say Adam, and she's recording it. She's saying the name how it sounds, and then she's breaking it up with claps. And on their device, every time they say the kid's name in the classroom, they're doing that. And typical peers can be doing the actual clapping and saying when they're calling out people's names. And so I just thought that's just such a it's so much common sense, you know, rather than latching onto a program that's easier in some ways, but less personally relevant in many other ways.
Can I share another quick example about that same idea?
Yes, please.
I had a student who was a Switch user, and we created a Switch accessible electronic book. And to make it relevant, well, this isn't the day where you could do that, a few years ago, but we took pictures of his classmates with each item. So if A is for apple, then his friend, you know, Johnny might be taking a bite of the apple or writing something with the P is for pencil. So each of his classmates we had a picture of them using the idea. And anyway, we kind of made it come to life for him that way to be high interest. And that was
awesome.
And then we plugged it into the smartboard at the front of the room, and he played that book for the whole class, and everyone really enjoyed seeing it because they saw themselves in there. And so he was able to share his work as well. So that was kind of a fun one along those lines.
That is really neat. I had a boy with two-step scanning on GoTalk, and his name was Caleb. And so we took away the select and only the auditory preview switch was there. And it just goes through CALEB. be Caleb. And we put other kids' names on there, and when it was their name, the other kids can come up and do the switch as well. And so they're spelling their name using the switch. So you're doing, again, you're thinking about not this is just another way for another young guy, young typical kiddo, to hear the letters of his name in sequence, and accessing it through a switch works too. So thinking about mnemonics in a personal way actually definitely makes inclusion a little bit more relevant as well.
So someone else had an idea in chat. They said using a scavenger hunt. So they're hunting the room each day for 3 items with that letter. And so that could even be in virtual, you know, instruction time at home or in the classroom.
Definitely. When I use virtual, like what Kristen has with her little sky in the background, sometimes I have pictures of things that I put, that I've thrown pictures in on PowerPoint. And so they're all around me, and they are using either eye gaze or they're using their device to tell me what they see. So you actually can do some of this virtually as well. One challenge in providing explicit phonological awareness instruction to students with significant disabilities is that many instructional activities require speech production, which is something we've been hammering so far. The underlying skill is most altered when these activities are adapted to make them accessible to students with poor spelling, intelligibility, or poor speech, or no speech at all. What starts as an interactive learning activity turns into a test. And I think that we see that over and over again. And part of it turns into a test because we want data. And part of it turns into a test because we are trying to meet an IEP goal. But then we're never teaching if we're always testing, right? So find that, or what letter does this start with, instead of maybe flipping it around. Pick a letter and we're going to come up with words that start that way, or pick a letter and we're going to go the other way. And there's no wrong answer. So figuring out how do we do some errorless explanation here so that they have interactive learning rather than testing. And I think we all fall into that from time to time. How did that land with people? I think that we've all experienced that, and some of us are being quiet because we're like, I think I do that. I think we all do that. So I'm excited to get to a section of the webinar today where we're going to actually break into a little bit smaller groups so that we can all begin to brainstorm, and feel free to share more on specific activities to target alphabetical knowledge and phonological awareness. So we will, if you're feeling like this is a large group and you're not sure how to even jump in right now, there's a space for you shortly. I do want you to know of a few resources. Are we breaking out now, or am I coming in? I think I guess I'm here, so I'm telling you. On the book study that I was on Facebook when the book first came out in January, there was a whole bunch of us on there brainstorming apps that address this, that address phonological awareness and alphabetic knowledge. If you know how to do, make the iPad switch accessible, some of these can be set up that way. But they warned in the book that to avoid apps that only focus on matching and sorting, that again, we need to continue to be seeking variety, because you don't know how kids learn. Not all kids learn the same way. And actually, we don't even know how typical kids learn. You know, some of the research came out that no matter what the type of instruction, about 40% of the kids learn how to read, even those that don't get a lot of explicit instruction. So we don't really know how the brain all works, and how everyone's brain learns literacy is a little different. So making sure that we don't just find a favorite app, and it's favorite sometimes to us because that's how literacy makes sense to us, or that's how it makes sense to a few of our kids who have more easily communicating their needs. But we want to make sure that we have variety. So this is a Google Doc, and we can put this link in the chat. And should I go to it? I don't know if I won't do that.
I'll put the link in there, Brendan.
Thank you. And we also just want to, before we jump into groups, I want to point something out that we don't want to forget about, that the fact that your AAC app alone targets alphabetical knowledge and phonological awareness. And I know that anything with word power, so that can be on Accent, that can be on NovaChat, that can be touch chat on the iPad. I think Proloquo has a keyboard in there now that will say the sound instead of the letter. So if I hit R, it'll say if I hit W, it'll say wa, and then sight words come up, and they look at the words that start with W. One of the ways to not be testing is pick a letter and tell me a word that starts with that letter, because they're going to touch the letter and then they're going to touch the top word and they're going to be right every time. And it helps, it does a couple of things. It helps our kids get aware that that's a speed and accuracy way. That's a way to help kids with speed and accuracy on AAC, but it's also building that alphabetic knowledge and phonological awareness in a layout that's going to be consistent with their AAC device. So there is a little trick to adding word prediction to those phonological awareness, to those phonemic keyboards, but it can be done on all the devices. Has anyone else played around with that, adding word prediction to their phonological keyboards in AAC? I highly recommend it. And let me know if you get on an app or on a device and you need help with it, because I can probably, and there's so many, it's very specific per app, but you're basically going in to the regular keyboard into edit mode and looking how they've programmed a word prediction button. And then you're going into your phonemic keyboard, moving buttons around a little bit, not just buttons like volume up and down to create that, and assigning the same assignment.
Brenda, besides touch chat, do you know what other apps have phonological?
So anything with word power, so NovaChat and Accent with Unity and word power. I thought that Proloquo had it, but I haven't played around with it to see if I could add word prediction on that page the way that you can with a button.
I think it does. I haven't played around with it that much either, but I'm pretty sure it has that.
It has a phonological keyboard. Yeah, I think it has a phonological keyboard. I just haven't played with the word prediction piece, but it has my kids have done amazing things. The other thing about word prediction is it learns things. So now my kiddos can, if they do TW and twinkle comes up, little and star come up before they've even hit letters. So they're starting to build up their sight word recognition skills as well. So before we go off and buy a whole bunch of new apps, consider how many kids might need additional apps and how many of them already have something on their AAC that is sufficient or at least highly functional to be learning those principles on that platform.
Brenda, this is
Yeah.
Heidi.
Hi.
I wasn't able to find the phonics alphabet on Snap Plus Core, but I was able to create one like really quickly. It just really didn't take very long at all, and linked it right to the keyboard. And so I had like if you touch the letter B, you could touch another thing that says, and then it would move to the phonetic keyboard and say ba. So it didn't take, I'm not great with programming the AAC devices. I'm an OT, but this was like super easy. It took me less than like 10 minutes.
You know what, you're right. And so if first of all, I love that you did it as an OT. You didn't wait around for somebody. And second of all, when I think when the thing about it is sometimes you'll have a class where it's like you have a lot on the same system. So don't, if it's not, if you have a lot on Proloquo and you have to make your own, if you got to go blank slate, it's still worth it because you can transfer those pages and everybody then has access to that. Sometimes I have sometimes I copy a keyboard in an AAC app and create and link them all to word walls. So R will go to a word wall. And again, those word walls I build with the parents because I have the luxury of working with parents a lot of time, and say, what are words that start with R that are meaningful to them? Oh, well, his favorite thing is his robot. That might not be anybody, it's our word, but his, but it makes sense. So building word walls off of QWERTY layouts that you've just duplicated is another way to teach that first letter stuff. I know all of you guys are going to have, so Heidi was talking about Snap Plus Core First that can come on the iPad, and it also comes on, you know, Tobii Dynavox devices and those with eye gaze. So it's a versatile program. Okay, so let's just see. What about alternative access? Auditory preview could have a letter name or a sound, and selection could have a word or words that start with that sound. And Go Talk Now really does allow for that. So if you're doing two-step scanning, you can hit a letter and it says, you know, ah. And you might have something in front and it's like, I don't know, it's a ball. Do you think it starts with ah? And then if they don't, then they scan to the next one, ba. What do you think? If they think that's the right one, they make a selection, and it can say, you know, ba says ball, or B says, you know, B says ba, or however you want to do it. So using two-step scanning for kids can help them scan through letter names or sounds and respond with the opposite, so they start to pair that letter and that sound. And I think it's valuable even for those with limited vision. Sometimes we have kids on two-step scanning because their vision is limited and we're not even sure how much literacy is realistic. And I think we cut those kids way short, because they can always repair communication breakdowns by giving categories and first letters of words. And we know that that's a tried and proven you know, experience. That's a tried and proven way to repair communication breakdowns, is giving a category and a first letter. And I think even those with limited vision have the right to that repair strategy. Anybody use alternative access and two-step scanning and pairing it in that way? So I talked a little bit about this in my webinar on Tuesday, which we did record if you want to learn about it, because Go Talk Now, in fact, the light version has 5 free pages. So to no cost to you, you could play around with this strategy. And then on May 1st, I'm doing like a make and take for Go Talk, where if you do have Go Talk, or if you do have Go Talk Lite, you can learn how to make a few literacy activities within Go Talk that would be accessible to those that are using switches. So that's May 5th from 12 to 1:30, and then it may be to your benefit prior to that webinar to watch the recorded webinar of kind of what Go Talk can do in the realm of literacy. Kristen just threw up that.
So I put in the week 1 and 2 for Comprehensive Literacy for All, and I'm about to put in the link to the recording of the Go Talk webinar that you might want to view before the May 5th. And then I'll plug in the registration for May 5th, if I can locate that. So you'll see a series of links popping up.
And maybe if you watch the Go Talk one I did on Tuesday, that's enough for you because you know Go Talk well. But there were many on that webinar that were inspired, like, oh, these are great ideas, but I actually don't know the app well enough to just run with it from here. So we decided to break it down into a little bit of a how-to piece. Okay. Oh no, is this blurry on your end? Yeah, very blurry.
Yeah, it's blurry.
That's so weird.
I wonder if you go out of present. Well, no, that probably won't help either. Nope.
Huh.
Britta, I could just share this one slide and then you can go back to PowerPoint for your captions.
Okay. How can you do that?
Let
me just see if I can stop sharing this way.
If I share my screen, I have it up.
let me just see. And by the way, just look away on my screen right now because this is bad. I'm trying to open up just the graphic, and it's not. Oh, there we go. So again, I told you some of you that I did the book study online, and Alyssa Wern is amazing, and she does that book study, and she made this graphic, and I thought it was super amazing, the way that she kind of put explicit instruction on one side and embedded instruction on the other, and how those might create a growth area. And I don't know if this, sometimes some of us need a little more graphic support to conceptualize ideas. So I just thought I'm gonna give a shout out to her and the way that she presents information, and say I really like the way that she put this together. What we're gonna do right now is go into, we're gonna go into groups. So I'm going to stop this share, and we're going to go into breakout rooms. It's going to randomly assign you. It's okay if you're not with your best friend. We won't be in there that long. And I'm going to have you guys just on a smaller group kind of do what we hoped to do in a large group, but it's just unrealistic given the number of people on the webinars. So go ahead.
Okay, Brenda, one question before you go, before you send us there. Are they numbered 1, 2, 3, 4 for you in the breakout rooms? We're going to assign Linda, Rose, Sari, and I as note takers, but we weren't sure which number room we were in. Do we just decide that, or are they numbered?
Okay, I think that what I can do is, sorry to everyone on here, as it takes me a moment to do this for the first time, but so I'm going to put Kristen Leslie in breakout room 1, and I'm going to put Sari in breakout room 2. That way you guys just all have a member of Special Ed Technology Center in your breakout room to take notes, and you can freely speak. I'm going to put Linda in breakout room number 3, and Rose, let me just find you, Rose, in breakout room number 4. And then I'm hoping that the rest will all randomly assign. I don't know. So I'm going to open all rooms, and if you all are still sitting with me except for the 4 I just said, then hold on, and I'll put you in rooms, okay? Just a second. I'm assigning now if you can hear me. It's going to take me a minute, guys, because it's not letting me do a random. So thank you for your patience. Might have to figure out another way to do this next time, but thanks for your patience. We'll just working through here. I'm sorry, but I think it's alphabetical by first name, maybe? I'm not sure the randomness of it all. So please go ahead and join your breakout room. Use the chat to let me know if you're having trouble joining your room. Looks like there's a few that are still having a hard time, maybe. Ellen, Robin, Maragia. Go ahead and join your breakout room.
we are instructing these sounds and these words all the time without even thinking about it.
Right.
Right.
She was saying like an OT, let's cut. C is for cut.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some of it just sounds like in your room, it was a little bit just affirming, like, oh, I guess I do that. Oh, wait, yeah, I guess I do that. I use bingo all the time when I just put different kids' names in there, and it doesn't have to be the magic 5 letters. And I do that all the time, and I realize, oh, yeah, I'm doing that.
The song, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes. Anything else from room 2? How about room 3? Was that Linda?
That was me. And does anybody from our room want to talk? I'll give them a chance first. So, okay. Well, they had lots of great ideas too. And, you know, things like the scavenger hunt and the memory games. One that I had never heard of was a Venn diagram where they put the students in pairs and they take all the letters of their names and then they make a Venn diagram and see which letters are the same in both of their names.
Oh,
So,
I love that.
Cool.
yeah, isn't that
Good
fun?
idea.
So, and then a preschool, in a preschool, she said in the building that it was a preschool classrooms, but they actually put letters and words at the kids' level, and then all the staff in the whole school engaged the kids with the letters. And she said not only does it teach them some alphabetic, you know, awareness, but it also keeps them straight in line and staying where they need to be. So
Neat idea.
yeah.
When you say on their level, you mean not their functioning level, but their like knee level, right?
Well, their eye level,
Eye
correct.
level, right.
Right. So yeah. And then somebody talked about that they actually just hang letters over tables, and then throughout the day, as they get sent to the different colored tables, they have letters hanging over those tables that they can already engage with. So I thought that was a nice idea too. So. And then talked about how music and movement are always helpful in no matter what. If you can put things to, you know, words to music and teach them, and for the phonological awareness and, you know, and get them moving. So yeah, I thought there were some great ideas.
Anything else from room 3? We'll move on to room 4, Rose.
Yeah, I have to just say, Linda, your notes are just too organized, headings and everything. So mine aren't that pretty, but good job. So anyone from our group want to jump in and talk? Because we just had several people talk about like sensory activities was a big theme when we first started sharing.
Oh, yeah.
Wendy, you want to share a little bit about some of the sensory stuff you were talking about?
Sure. Yeah, I was saying with the speech pathologist lens, I start off almost every session with the letter, but then, so it's routine based, but then the variety I put in there is how they make the letter. So they might find it in a bean bin or make it out of Play-Doh, or again, Alma and I have kids make theirs out of like put whipping cream down, and then I layer in for the error-free part the indirect language stimulation. So while they're experiencing that, that's when you're like, oh, it's an S, or S goes S, or what sound, you know, to add in the letter naming and the sound letter correspondence, and of course articulation, because
Right.
we're paths.
Right. You can't take that out of us.
All right. Someone who talked about the name walls. That was another big idea we spent a little time chatting about.
That was me. I was just saying, you instead of, you know how classrooms have word walls, you could have a name wall that has all the names of the students in the classroom up. And then you could do all kinds of activities taking off on individual students' names. I would like Christy to share. I really liked her Why Are We All at Home idea that she just recently did.
Yeah, I made using Google Slides and asking parents and the classroom staff to send me pictures. made a little digital book of what everyone's doing at home and why school is closed. So it's repetitive. So every page says Pioneer School is closed. And then it will say, you know, Jackson's riding his bike. Pioneer School is closed. Miss Britton is walking her dog. Pioneer School is closed, and using the pictures from that I got from everyone.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a treasure. And it kind of meets the social story need too.
Right. Yeah, it was motivated by that. And I was getting lots of requests for Zooming tearful children who wanted to come to school and not understanding that it was closed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little excitement there at Brenda's house.
That's good. That's the highlights. We'll pass it back to you since we're at the end here.
All right. Thank you guys so much for participating. I love everything you guys brought to the table today. I think it's like I said, like many of you have said, it's good to get new ideas and it's good to reaffirm the ones you've been doing and using. What we'd like to do is, I think we're going to do another book snap for shared reading, which is the next topic. Sarah's going to lead that one. And so we'd like for you to continue to make a slide for what stands out for you. And that way you participate in the book study in another level, as well as learning new technology. And then when the book is dead and gone, and the book study is, and you want to look back on things as life returns to normal, hopefully, and we start working with kids face to face, those book snaps and documents like this will be hopefully helpful to apply. So next week, same time, same place, shared reading.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you all for joining.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's just a question as people are signing off about